Hey, what up, y'all? So Normies coming at you with a little Black Panther Wakanda Forever review. My name is Chris Nuisance Johnson. Follow me on the internet, but not in real life.
What up? My name is Mickey.
I'm Dameron.
I'm Shelby, and I'm an administrative assistant for the Normies.
Hey, fellow nerd.
Yes.
Some background homies. Well, we're here to review Black Panther, and
Wakanda Forever.
this is your spoiler warning. We will be discussing spoilers. Look at me, camera, zoom in. Spoilers. Spoilers are happening for the rest of the video. This is your warning. Spoilers. So we'll do a little TLDR here at the beginning. What did everybody think?
I thought it was good. I think it is the most serious Marvel movie I've ever seen. And I had to mitigate some of my expectations because I was going in thinking the last movie was such a big event. And I knew that this wasn't going to be the case, but I had to shape my mind for that. Still enjoyed it. Still thought it was good.
I think it still had that kind of big event energy. I liked it. I really liked it. I mean, you know, considering everything that happened, I think that it was very tasteful and very respectful of Chadwick Boseman and his legacy. And it was just really good. It was just a very good emotional film. It was very, very good. I think it was a worthy sequel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that I thought about it was it's still a big tentpole Marvel event film, but it's wrapped in this love letter to Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
And the character of the Black Panther as well, but, you know, in a big way, mostly Chadwick Boseman, which is, you know, rightfully deserved.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, kind of as you guys were saying, I walked away from it kind of needing to unpack it because there's a lot. It's a very dense movie.
Very much so.
A lot happens. And even though the runtime is actually kind of long, it has so much material that it fills it pretty evenly.
Didn't
throughout.
feel that long.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Still felt pretty.
So it's all to say that it's pretty dense and there's a lot to go through.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I thought it was a bit more heavy than I anticipated going into it, even with the assumption that they were going to have T'Challa be dead. It was heavier than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I really, really liked it. It was the most excited I felt about a movie of Phase 4. I don't know if that's a hot take, but
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Now that we have our overall thoughts, let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's just talk about, you know, obviously the intro starts with the funeral. And I just kind of want to talk.
Even before that, just showing the Marvel logo was all...
Well, no, that comes after.
Yeah.
That came after? Oh, yeah.
They showed the
That was their
funeral.
cold open. So we have the cold open
Yeah.
in which we get the funeral of T'Challa. And we... Also, one thing I wanted to ask, maybe somebody knows the lore behind this, but when they take the casket up into the ship, and then they, you know, leave kind of towards the horizon.
Oh,
is
like
that is
where
that
does
in
it
the
go?
lore? Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of asked myself, like, where do they take them then after?
Maybe it's like a private burial ground.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
Or like
he
a
was
funeral
the Black
procession.
Panther.
Right.
And
But
they're our
you're-
royalty. Royalty's going to get buried somewhere.
Sure,
in
sure.
But you were
Very
talking
true.
about the Marvel logo. How
But then,
Yeah.
But so then, concluding after we see the ship with T'Challa's casket sail off into the horizon, then it cuts to the Marvel Studios logo. But this
Yeah.
time, instead of having all of the traditional Marvel heroes in canon in order, it's all just Chadwick Boseman
Yeah,
as the Black Panther, when, you know, in costume, out of costume.
That's when I couldn't hold it together. I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And
No.
in that moment, it's silent. So they
Pure quiet.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so once the casket is delivered and again it sails off, that's a moment of silence that just holds over the entire Marvel Studios logo.
Yeah.
And ends in a really cool, like, purple on silver,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, finish. And it was just, and it was so just thoughtful.
It-
Really
yeah.
well done.
I was like getting very emotional during the beginning, but I kind of held it in. But when the Marvel logo hit, I was like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
It was very beautiful, very tastefully done. And I thought about you because it was like, it was a celebration. And I was like,
Point I've always been on.
and I was like, I was like, you would probably fuck with that funeral.
Yeah, that's a point I have always tried to rock with. I know that a funeral is it's a homegoing party, right? It's a celebration of your life. Like, it is indeed sad, but I think the whole idea of a somber funeral is rooted into a lot of different cultures, and a lot of other cultures kind of have these like parties, like I think it's called the Third Line or the Last Line in New Orleans, where a jazz band literally is like doing a parade down the street. Like, that's the kind of funeral I want. I also appreciate that everyone's wearing white. I didn't have any white outfits like this, so I had to wear my black one. But you still get the point. Like, it was like, yeah, I think it was a real moment, and for me that really resonates because that's always the kind of funeral I want.
Yeah, I thought that the moment that they had of kind of just like the peaceful family gathering at the gravesite, they had like their moment And then, of course, they carry the casket through, and then that's when all the kind of like the funeral procession starts, and that's when like the celebration begins. And you can see everybody celebrating him. You know, it's not even necessarily that they have to follow the casket. It's just that the whole of Wakanda really is mourning his loss, but at the same time celebrating him in this tradition.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was punctuated by the mural that was on the wall. Like you could just, it was like he was watching over them, the celebration.
And it was
and
also
everything.
reminiscent of Tony Stark's mural in the Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
And then about the funeral too, it officially starts Shuri's arc.
Yes.
That's like so not only is it the start of the movie, but it's the start of her arc. How is she gonna deal with this grief?
Even before, when she was trying to recreate the Black Panther herb, that moment was like full circle at the end. So that was very important to establishing the arc. T'Challa's death sent her on this journey.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a nice bookend, and it's nice when they have narrative aspects that have a setup and a payoff, a callback in that way.
And I like where they were going with Shuri's personality. Like, she grew up in this culture where she's also not anti-tradition, but she's not that into it as everybody else. I mean, like,
she is the youth.
Yeah, she is the youth. So like,
as M'Baku said, like, he's a youth that scoffs at tradition.
I really enjoyed that about her because I can relate to that growing up in a pretty like super religious culture. But like kind of just being like, yeah, I get it. Like I get the lessons and everything, but I feel like some people take it too literally. Yeah. And just kind of her struggle with the, her and her mom and like how her mom is kind of. By the way, huge shout out to Angela Bassett.
I mean,
every single scene she was in was
she commanded.
Especially when she's like yelling. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. When she's like yelling at Okoye later, like that. When she like loses it was just like, man, it was amazing. But
which scene next? Is it the UN?
Yeah, the UN scene, the court scene.
Which good because it goes into the Angela Bassett thing. So at the end of the last movie, when T'Challa was talking about opening up Wakanda, and I think. Like I saw that and was like, oh man, like we're gonna be giving vibranium out. Yeah, I said we. We're gonna be giving vibranium out. Like that's kind of a weird move because like it's the natural resource of the place. Like it's the one thing that the kind of technology that maybe we shouldn't be sharing or would be sharing, right? Like why would we do that, right? Like if you have this thing, why give it out to the world, right? And then so you kind of see. I guess not a rewrite to that, but her addressing that, just being like, why would I give y'all vibranium? I see how y'all act. Dear French minister, are these your fucking people? Like, not at all. And I do think it's kind of boss to see somebody walk into the UN with all this pomp and circumstance and with all this, like, we're a superpower. Like, on the national scale, like, we're the strongest country in the world because we have vibranium. And we're not colonizing things. Isn't that weird? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And, like, just, I don't know. It's a big shit talky moment. And Angela Bassett delivers on that.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. And just how she punctuated, like, next time we won't be as nice.
Yeah.
She did it. She brought everyone back. Like, they looked fine.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even look injured.
The next major thing is the assault on the ship where we meet the Talokans.
Yeah, hey, we got some sirens.
Talokans.
I know.
I was like, oh,
God. Me too. I looked over to my friends and they were like, what is that? I was like, sirens. They're
Sirens.
jumping into the
I was
water.
listening in the theater. You hear, you're like, oh, there's sirens.
And that song too. I really loved how they were setting up the Talokans because I feel like a huge amount of cultural research is done for like the look and feel of the Wakandans, and I feel like the same depth was given to the Talokans. And
100%.
Yes, definitely.
So I just texted my friend who he's from Peru, and I was like, bro, I was like, do you see it? He was like, yeah. So I was like, you gonna be Namor for fucking Halloween? And he was like, actually, that's mine. He's like, I'm gonna wait until they come up with an Incan superhero. And I was like, good on you. I don't know why I'm Mesopotamic shit like that, man. I'm not on my top of my game. But they did do it super, super well.
It was like a really creepy sequence. But like what we find out is like they're super strong, but they're not impervious because like the one scientist shoots a few before they take her down. But then
Big dude wouldn't go down.
Then you see Namor fling the chopper out of the.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I guess we're even kind of getting ahead of all that, where we have this great moment where where it kind of does an establishing shot of this tanker, or what looks like a tanker.
Yeah, out in the ocean.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
cut to the interior, and it's essentially like what looks to be a lab that's then broken into very abruptly and all of a sudden by special forces, private military, we don't really know.
Yeah.
And they're scouting vibranium. That's what they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then, of course, so they eventually do get to access to vibranium, which is on this, it looks to be a Wakandan vessel, from the inside at least.
I thought it was just the seafloor, like, because there was just vibranium on the seafloor.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was a vessel or what it was.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
like, deep under there.
Or it was a station, perhaps. Like,
I could never do that job. Like, could you like be in a suit
No.
and just dive into the dark?
No, exactly,
depths
and
of
it
the-
tells you why,
Right.
because they just get snatched up.
She saw the phantom jellyfish, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's scary enough on its own.
right.
Phantom jellyfish probably
Yeah.
looks like a fucking ghost under the water. And then they're like, oh no, there's actually scary
And
shit.
then she's
down
like,
here.
he's gone. And she's like, what do you mean?
Yes.
He's gone.
That's what you mean? What do I mean? Take me out the fucking water. That's what I do like that they're able to make them scary, right? Like
Yeah, yes.
when it came to, because obviously we're gonna have to make a comparison to Aquaman because they're people under the water.
Yeah.
Aquaman and the Aqua people, the Aqua Knights, the Aqua Keys, they never seemed scary, right? They were a
No.
threat,
No.
but there was never like, hey, 70% of the planet, you might just get snatched up.
yeah.
And like they give you that thalassophobia, whatever the fear of deep water is, and like that kind of stays through the movie. Every time
man.
someone's in
Yes.
the water, you're like, at any moment,
And
you might get snatched the fuck up.
I
and
love
that's
the
kinda scary.
design of the reverse mask. How they have like the what you can see
Water.
the water
Yes.
in there.
Yes.
Oh,
And over their
their
gills too.
Yeah.
their
And the
design was just amazing. It really was awesome.
So it was a good introduction to them as villains and as a threat.
The next major thing really is, I guess, them meeting Namor.
Yeah,
know.
which I think, so two things on that scene. I love that they're camping. I love that. We're back to nature. Like it is. I think that that's awesome. I think that more of black folks should just be camping and back to nature. I know it's a little scary at times because of the things that happen in nature, but we can have access to that. And I love that she was like, leave the technology. Like we're going to go fucking camping and we're going to do this ritual. And that was like another big moment where it was like, hey, we got to get rid of this. And when Shuri, the queen was talking about how she thinks about T'Challa and like when the wind blows and this and that, and then Shuri's like, that's just a construct that your brain makes up to
Right.
make you feel better, right? Which is probably 100% accurate. But then with fucking the wisdom, she's just like, well, what construct does your brain bring you that doesn't make you feel awful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
exactly.
like, there you go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I love I love that scene because it's such a realistic like parent-child like portrayal, because like you're listening to the child and you're like, oh, okay, all right, that's a different way of looking at it, you're making sense, but then like the parent has a clapback that makes the child think still, like,
Well,
it's just like children feel like they know what's best, and like your parents always still find a way to humble you in some way.
That's also another hit on Shuri's character arc, that scene, because she refuses to burn her like white clothes from the funeral and instead says she wants to watch the world burn or burn the world down or something like that. Yeah, which is another major plot point for her and her character arc.
and it's understandable that she would feel that kind of
Yeah.
anger. And the worry that like
It's
letting
very
go
realistic.
of that would push her into it. It's also the traditional thing too, where her mom wants to do something traditional.
Yes.
She's like,
Yeah.
It
It
did. We were missing the subtext that it marked a year anniversary after T'Challa's funeral,
Yeah.
where they then burn their funeral clothes.
To-
that they
because-
wore.
because
to let go of the
it's-
grief.
And it's time to develop. I do like that view. It's like time to develop a new relationship with the dead.
Yeah.
Which on one hand, like, yeah, I do really like that take on death, but like scientifically speaking, you can't put like a time limit on someone's grief. You know, it might
true.
it might take somebody longer than a year to
Yeah.
to do that. But
I think it's one of those
but
things.
but I
like,
do really like that outlook on death. Is like, you know,
like, you know, when you're
It's-
getting depressed and people are like, you just got to go work out and do stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you not depressed, but it
Right.
puts you on that road to starting to get there. And I think
Yeah.
that maybe it wasn't, hey, put a time limit on your grief, but like you got to
it's-
start the process.
it's a-
You got
Yeah.
to start somewhere. This is the first
Yeah.
step.
it's a symbolic thing. Yeah.
And she pushed back against that, and that's her arc through the.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
then we meet Namor, and he has his first bit of dialogue with him, played by Tenoch Huerta, who
Yeah.
I think killed it.
Yeah.
He
He
did
was-
it amazing.
I loved Namor. He was really good. He was like easily
He was.
one of the best parts of the. And one of my favorite villains in all
Yeah.
of the. I wouldn't even call him a villain. Like,
Yeah.
he's not,
No, yeah, but he
Like-
definitely did villainy, and
Yeah.
I'm usually not a person that like almost not roots for the villain, but like actually likes
Yeah,
them. I
yeah.
felt like Pat a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I like Namor a lot.
Well,
Yeah.
I think his only flaw is his just like complete unwillingness to compromise, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
a compromise could have been made. A lot of this violence could have been avoided, but he's just so protective of
His people.
his people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I totally get it, but like if you deal harshly like that with everybody you come across, eventually someone's gonna push back.
And I like that they it's a mirror to Wakanda as well. Of like,
Yeah.
hey, like, look, we're kind of like you guys. Like, we stayed hidden. We
Yeah,
have a
recluse
powerful
nations.
figure. We have vibranium. We had colonizing. Like, we had all those things. And, like, look at how we turned out. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost that Killmonger mentality, but, like, with a whole group of people, was just being, like, we stuck to ourselves. We did it on our own. And now, like, the world is here. And, like, we're going to address it in the way that essentially any other superpower would. And by superpower, I mean, like, national superpower, not
Yeah.
superhero superpower.
I think
Yeah.
Marvel does such a good job with all the villains and making them relatable, especially as of recent, like
Yeah.
Phase 4
Yes.
and whatnot.
That's probably the biggest thing about Phase 4 so
Yeah.
far, is that the,
The
villains
villains
are
have
all
been
like, God,
fantastic,
I don't know,
right?
are you a villain?
Yeah.
Wanda?
It's like you make some good points.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I find him to be kind of like She-Hulk, the Abomination,
Yeah.
in some ways, because in moments he can be very charming and persuasive, but
He's
then in
very
other moments he's threatening, and you can feel like a sense of danger, you know. And he ebbs that back and forth in a way that I don't think other Marvel villains, they are, multi-layered. They do, have personality traits, but I think that he played that in such a way that we haven't really seen with a Marvel villain before, where he can sit
Yeah.
down and, charm you, and then in the next sentence say, well, if you don't like what I just said, then I'm going to go to war with your whole
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Hold on.
You like him, and
Yeah.
you're like, wait, why are you doing that? Why
Yeah.
did you do that?
Exactly.
Like, you seemed like
He
such a
brings
nice
you in,
person.
and then
yeah.
he kind of lets you know what his real motives are, and then
Yeah.
you're like, wait a second.
And
Yeah.
I think we'd be remiss, too, to say that, like, very technically he should look dumb, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
I actually, like, Marquetta
Yeah.
was like, because I watched it with Marquetta, she was like, I don't really like his design that much. I was like, I kind of like it.
I think
I
I was
loved
like, I
it.
think they
I
kind of
loved it.
fucking pulled it off. Like, no lie, like,
Yeah.
he should look like fucking Mr. Nimbus from that episode of Rick and Morty. But, like, here we are looking at this dude who kind of looks like a boss. He's got wings on his fucking ankles. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he pulled it off. Like, it could have been really ridiculous with the tiny wings,
Like-
but he
Yes.
just
Yeah.
the costume and
But the way that he
everything.
moved,
Yes.
the
And
way that he looked.
he
Yeah.
exuded that all-powerful person
it was
that you believed that he could literally, which he did partially, destroy Wakanda a little bit, flooded
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so on to the next thing. We meet, skipping to the next major thing, meeting Ironheart
Yeah,
Yeah,
Riri Williams
Riri
from
Williams.
Chicago.
and the bridge
Yes.
fight. Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne.
okay.
So I
I hear
I
she's
like.
getting the show.
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
I really liked her. I liked her a new addition to the team. And
Yes.
that she's obviously a fan of like Stark Tech. It was
Yeah.
very very.
Everyone's so impressed by her, they can't give her over to
She
the murder
made
god.
a vibranium detector as a school assignment, so it's like,
Yeah, right.
cool.
And
I
the
just love that
government
she's like,
just
oh shit,
stole
did I piss
that, I'm
Wakanda off?
assuming?
Yes,
Yeah, the
they-
government just stole that
Oh, I
and
thought
started
she-
using it.
because it was at
It was either
Cambridge.
stolen or sold to the CIA.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
like maybe
She-
her professor did
Oh,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
I-
that's because she said she seemed confused when Shuri and Okoye brought it up.
Like, how
and
do
she
you know
said it
about
was
this?
just for a school assignment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know if
somebody
the school like sold it to the CIA or it
Professor,
was just like
probably.
stolen.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it just kind of demonstrates like how smart she is and like how capable she is. I like the hustle that she was doing in the beginning. Like she's like, you forgot to Venmo me. She's
And he
like,
was
It's
like,
more
it's
now.
gonna be a band now. He's like, what? Well, how much-
Interest.
did you get a
Yeah.
fucking A? It's
right.
cool too that like we're so far into the MCU that like I make an Iron Man suit is just like a character trait. Being like,
Yeah.
it's just a thing I can do because like
That-
it's been around for so long. Like even
Yeah.
Peter Parker's just like, yeah, I made some shit, and it's like, well, that's kind of top tier. And he's like,
After
Yeah.
seeing everything that we've seen over all these years, like suspending disbelief is way easier in these movies.
Yes.
And especially Phase 4 has been like so grand and fantastical. I think it's more in line with the spirit of the comics, where like you have these like just contained stories, and it's just like so many Earths, and literally anything can happen. So it's like,
Yeah.
sure, a 19-year-old that knows how to create. Yeah, sure.
Well,
let's
and,
do
you know,
it.
in the fiction of the movie too, she had been working in automotive engineering, electronics
Was
since
since
she was
Since
3.
she was really young,
Yeah.
she
Yeah,
like
something like
said
that.
she built her first thing.
16 years.
She's supposed to be from the comics. She's supposed to be like one of the smartest people
Yeah.
from the comics.
Yeah.
And,
So,
Start.
yeah.
you know, Iron Man exists in this universe. The
Yeah.
tech that he used
Right.
exists in this universe. Like
Right.
the internet exists. Like how many
Yeah.
things could you find? You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like I'm not. For me,
Especially-
it wasn't hard to suspend my disbelief. It was like, well, she lives in a world where Tony Stark has been doing work for the last how long?
And-
so like that shit's all probably
Well,
You know.
let me clarify. Not suspension of disbelief, but like just how quickly some characters are introduced now.
yeah.
Whereas like
yeah.
in the past, I feel like maybe like introducing Ironheart, she might have had like a big introduction in the movie to like really kind of. But in this,
we
it's
didn't have to build up. To
yeah, we
see
didn't.
her.
It's just like this is Ironheart. This is what she does. Like we don't need a lot of that extra
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Yeah.
not really suspension of disbelief, but just like how quickly we can process new characters now.
Sure. I mean, we just did that with. I think it's safe to say that we did that with Daredevil in She-Hulk, reintroducing
Oh,
Daredevil
yeah.
into the
Yeah,
MCU.
for people who didn't know, it's just like, look, you either
Yeah.
know or you can go Google it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where we're at.
Edit this out if you haven't
The bridge
seen it.
fight.
Yeah, the bridge fight.
Scary.
Let's go into the
That's what I
bridge
want.
fight.
That's
Oh,
what
I
I
loved
want.
it.
It was
and we can talk
scary.
about
Yeah.
Okoye here a little
Yeah.
bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I think the fight choreography was like really sick, especially when Okoye is fighting the big dude and he puts his spear into the ground and then like crashes her.
That was-
dude.
Yeah.
Like,
For me, that was like, and this will be a general complaint for later on in the movie, but an understanding for why it probably happened, my guess. But that fight kind of rang out as being one of the best in the whole entire movie for me
Yeah.
because it was like, it was live. I'm getting to see Diana. Damn it, how do you say her name? Diana Guerrera? No.
Denai.
Denai.
Yeah,
there it is.
Denai Guerrero.
Denai Guerrera, getting to see her like do her fucking thing and getting to see her in this fight where she's almost outmatched and getting to see all that and being like, holy shit, like this is.
I thought she was about to die there.
She
Yeah.
I
was-
did
think she
too.
was
I
close,
was
man.
ready for her to die.
Me too.
But like you got to see all of that, and even before that, when they like you don't even know what's happening, they get hit by a water grenade, which is introduced
Awesome.
via a bomb.
Yes.
One terrifying, didn't know that, and then you start seeing them like getting drug off into the water,
Yeah.
and it's nighttime, and all my brain can think is like, what's down there? I think we see a whale.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all gotta get the fuck out of here. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
shit's worrying me.
So it was one of the moments for me that stood out was when the way they arrived. So the way they frame it is our characters are on a bridge along interstate style bridge.
Yeah.
And you just see whales like surface out of the water.
Yeah.
One was an orca, and then these three just jump
jump
off
off.
of it. And the other one was like a humpback whale, and then they just jump off. And I was like, well, fuck. I don't even know like what you do
Where do
with
you go
that.
from
Yeah,
there?
Right?
exactly. Yeah. Like,
And because it's nighttime, it's like it does. Like I think broad daylight, you see three people jump off a wall. They're like, okay, that's kind of silly. They drop this shit at nighttime, and it's like,
Terrifying.
What's
okay,
happening?
that's kind of fucking scary. That's like, oh my god, like there's
like anything.
Okay, 'cause,
surprise
like,
whale at
right.
any moment.
yeah, what's the phrase? It's like one dot is just a dot, but two dots is like a connection. It's like you see two whales jump out, two different
Something's
kinds of
going on.
whales. Like what? Like yeah, it was so awesome.
That
It
was
so cool.
really good, and just another example of like how fierce they are because she thought she killed 3 of them, but they got back up. So.
Yeah.
yeah,
No
yeah,
problem.
Oh, and
that was spooky.
Okoye
That was
lost.
like, ooh.
Okoye
She
lost.
did.
Yes.
She got thrown in the water.
She was
And-
bested. Yeah.
Yeah.
she
Yeah,
was.
and then next scene is where she gets yelled at. But I kind
Shit's
of wanted to talk about Okoye a little bit. My only criticism for this movie was I felt like they made Okoye a little too quippy in this one.
Yeah.
Like just one too many quips. And the only reason it's not a bad thing on its own, but Marvel has a bad habit of like making a character slightly quippy, and then obviously the audience is going to like those moments. So then they just over lean into it, and then the next movie that character is like only quips. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like Okoye was like a very like stoic kind of serious character for me. And I just like I don't know. There were a few moments where I was like, we didn't need a joke there. But yeah, that not really much of a criticism. It's super minor, but that's really all I had. But yeah, the next scene is super powerful. The like where she has to. This was I think Angela Bassett's like best scene because like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
just like the emotion.
It's her coming
It-
off the rails because essentially she's getting all this feedback in real time from all these different talking heads, all of like the people surrounding her. And then she has this, recent failure and her daughter's gone missing and on top of her son dying. And let us not forget that in canon, T'Chaka died before T'Challa. So
Yeah.
it's like she lost her husband.
Winter Soldier?
Then she lost her son. Yeah. Civil War.
Civil War, my bad,
But,
yeah.
but yeah, and so she's just dealing with so much that she finally cracks. And, she spills her guts and she like basically lays everything bare for everyone.
I mean, I really think she had the right to do it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, and not that Okoye like super fucked up, but like you're the military general, you lost the princess. I'm sorry, you're going to get fired. Like that is right. Like I don't know how you could have, you know what I mean? Like in any other situation, like yeah, that makes sense. And I'm glad they didn't do the whole cliche of like turning your badge and shit and like get out of here. And she's like, I'm gonna go fucking rogue. She's like, no, dog, I'm gonna go shopping. Like that's it. I guess. You know what I mean? Like
she held it together pretty well.
It was heartbreaking.
I thought she was gonna cry, and I was like, oh my god, like she was so. It felt like she was holding back tears. And she's a warrior, right? Like you know, she's just like, no, I'm just gonna.
So
like,
on that, I really like the juxtaposition of how they showed her in the movie because like there's the moments where she's queen, whereas like, you know, she's got her whole garb from head to toe. She's like, you could see the muscles in her arms, like she's very put together. She looks very leader like. And then there's the moments where she's a mother without her headdress and you see the white of her hair, and that's where you kind of see her vulnerability and how frail she really
more
is.
Intimate.
Yeah, it's more intimate, and you can see like she is
Looser fitting clothes,
getting up in age, and she's more but like
vulnerable.
she's a leader, so she has to like it was cool to see both ends of her.
Yeah,
dichotomy.
Her physical performance in addition to her emotional performance, because she really I don't want to say stole the scenes because they were really written around her character, but man, she's just every time she's on the screen, she's magnetic. Every time she's on screen, you're just drawn to her character.
Like even when she's not speaking,
right.
her physical acting is like amazing, which is so hard to nail, I feel like, as an actor. So that's a testament to her.
She's been at it.
Yeah.
And she's royalty. She's commanding a royal presence, even when she's not talking, even when she's just walking into a room. You're like, And in that moment right there, really getting to put it all the way out there.
So one thing leads to another. Shuri gets kidnapped. Oh, by the way, I really wanted to call this one out. I want the fucking blue tracksuit that Shuri was wearing. That tracksuit went so hard. I was like,
gosh.
damn, that's a dope tracksuit.
The whole look of the movie. Like, I mean, we could talk about costuming and music and just background sets and just if you watched the movie, if you just saw pictures of it, you'd never seen, like, oh, this is fucking crazy. Like, what is this?
The aesthetic is so good. She gets kidnapped, seeing Talokan, meeting Namor again, and kind of like how, like, I mean, they treated her pretty fairly. I mean, they didn't like mistreat her. So
they let her see the city.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was neat.
Yeah.
Very cool to see Talokans.
I thought it was very cool, and
too.
especially in comparison to Aquaman.
Yes.
Marvel did it better.
You gotta keep. It's always gonna be the thing, but like, like Talokan, I was like, oh man, and even I had the thought, I was like, why the fuck are these people wearing so many clothes? And then I was like, oh, it's probably their tradition because the people that came here underwater all were wearing clothes as it was, so they just kept it up as a tradition, right? Like
Namor figured out those swim trunks.
Right, he was like, nah, bro.
They kept the Mayan look of everything, but what I really enjoyed was because it's underwater, they did the inverse geometry of things where you have essentially an upside down pyramid right above a regular pyramid, that kind of a thing, and you can only really do that in an underwater space because you can still occupy all of it. And I just thought that was really clever, having it like geometrically kind of mirror
We're
itself.
seeing a lot of that, like from the city in Loki to what they're about to show in Quantumania to like they're doing a lot of that fractal.
I like the hand gestures they do. They're because it's like, but also like did you see earlier the dude he's presenting somebody something because you're under fucking water, right? Like how can I see what you're holding unless you put that bitch in my fucking face? And it became like they're like, but it's also like kind of like a clamshell. And it's just like I'm holding up, which would also be like the I come at you, with no weapon.
That's what I like is like they didn't portray them as an evil entity or an evil people. It was just like another set of people, and like as hype as Wakanda is for black people, like it's like Talokan. I just like that they had their own like symbols and whatnot.
Latin America, South America.
Yeah, and their own just like lore, and just even before they got down there, he's working on like that painting or whatever he's taking care of. Like it just looks amazing and it looks awesome, and into like the backstory and shit. Also, I thought they were flirting a bit.
I did too.
I got that vibe, but until the end.
I got that vibe as well.
He's just very charming. It's like, how can you like him? You're kind of like,
I got that vibe until the end when he like, I did get that vibe, but then I was like, nah, I don't think so.
I was thinking, I mean, what better way to sure up the power of our two houses.
I thought
know,
that,
right?
I
And
thought
there
they
was
were
a
gonna
little
go in
bit
that
of
direction.
danger there too,
Yeah.
and
Yes,
like I'm
exactly,
sure Shuri.
exactly.
Hey, I mean, this is
I
my
don't know.
mother's fucking thing here.
Yeah.
Take that. Like, I was like, in
Exactly.
the water tribe, that's a
I
fucking
thought
proposal.
I thought it was gonna be something until he killed her
It seemed
mother.
manipulative, right?
It did. I couldn't
Yeah.
tell. He had Ragnar vibes. So I'm like, are you flirting or are you fighting? Because
Yeah.
you're kind of skirting around those edges. And like, I mean, I do think that makes him charismatic and dangerous.
Well, so we also kind of see the flashback of where he came from and like the origin of his name.
Which I thought that was pretty
That
cool.
was
Namor.
That was
That's yeah.
So he sees the Mayan people or the people of did they even really
Didn't they said they were at the Yucatan? The Yucatan Peninsula.
Mostly. So we'll just say there.
Because it's right by the pyramid. It's the same place
Right.
that Nakia is at later on when she's like looking out into the water.
Right. And so it had been colonized by the Spanish, and so they were speaking Spanish, and they said that he was Nino no amor.
Yeah.
So the child without love. So Namor, no amor. And I like that too because I don't think that was in the original comics. I think that they found a way to make that fit in the context of the storytelling in this
I think they
universe,
did
which
a
was cool.
really, really good job.
Yeah.
So Nakia saves Shuri but kills two of their people, which triggers the attack on Wakanda. So let's just
Which, hold on, just one last thing too. Like, also, what makes sense that Namor and them are going to be this pissed off. Like, we left, we were colonized by the Spanish, shit sucked, we retreated back into the water, we stuck with ourselves, look at how good we're doing. What happened to the other civilizations? Like, where are they now? Like, where did they go? So, like, to further down on I mean, y'all kind of fucking
surface
up. Like,
people.
we're going
Right.
to, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
yes.
I mean, I bet it does. You're right. It does. When you look at it that way, it does back up their stance. It's like, look what happened to our other people that
Yeah.
didn't get to retreat into
Where
the
they're like,
water.
why are you so
Yeah.
mad? And he just gestures
Yeah.
broadly around.
Well, and it also draws parallels to, of course, the Black Panther and Wakanda in terms of there just being colonial slavery in the Americas around the same time, if not
Yeah.
before,
So the attack on Wakanda is the next big thing, which was like, it was hard to watch, but again, like, you couldn't. I understood why it was because they kidnapped Shuri. Well, they didn't really kidnap Shuri. She wanted to go with them.
Yeah,
You can't take the princess
And
of
they,
a fucking
He's
country.
abducted.
but, like, they
Yeah,
didn't,
she
but they
was-
didn't mistreat her. They didn't hurt her. They didn't they took care of her. So like, I know she had to get rescued, but it sucks that two people died because like from their perspective, it's like we treated her well and you killed two of ours.
But you still
Well, you know-
took her.
Right,
And
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah,
you
for
can't
sure.
be mad that they came and rescued her and there were some casualties.
But,
Yeah.
but that's
You
why
did
it's
it
so
You ever play
good.
Super Mario? You know what happens when you take the princess.
But that's why it's good because neither side is wrong.
Well, they shouldn't have. They have an open lines of communication. They had no real reason to kidnap the princess.
But she went with them. She's like, take.
And you know what you're gonna do if you're gonna take the princess of a country? Call the other country. Be like, hey,
That's
listen,
true.
we got your princess. It's in a hostage thing. We're
I'll
doing some
go-
diplomacy. Why don't y'all come meet us out? Why don't we
Well-
open up some lines of communication so that we won't accidentally start a fucking war?
Yeah.
We'll talk about this shit.
This might be a good opportunity to say that this movie doesn't shy away from casualties. There are
No, yeah.
several
No.
casualties throughout the course of the movie. There's some nonviolent action, but there's also some lethal action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was worried
Several
M'Baku
people-
was gonna die when he got
Yeah.
hit. I was like, whoa,
I thought
we
he
haven't
was
got enough
gonna
M'Baku yet. We
tear
need more
his
M'Baku.
heart
Do
out.
not.
He caved
I
his
thought he was
chest in.
gonna like tear his heart out.
Right, I was like slow. I was
I
like,
know,
no,
it's
no, no,
like,
no.
M'Baku can't
No,
go.
we need more
At that
M'Baku,
point, we'd have
please.
enough.
It
We're
was
not quite there
crazy
yet.
because all this time we've been seeing like anytime we're in like a government type scene and Wakanda gets brought up, everybody's like, we can't even fathom their military capability, and here comes a bunch of people out of the water with nothing, and, and they just wreak. Mostly Namor. He just like wreaks havoc. Which, by the way, they also said the mutant word. They
Yeah, he said
Yeah.
I'm
they,
mutant.
they can say it now,
Yes,
so
right.
it makes sense why he's so powerful and stuff. But like, it was just crazy to see him wreaking havoc. Like that's when I was like I liked him from the beginning of the movie, but during the Wakanda attack, I was just like, it sucks. Wakanda was getting attacked, but I was like, damn, he's badass. Like,
Yeah.
So badass and take no prisoners type of thing.
Yeah.
He said, the queen is dead. I'll be back in a week.
Bury your
yeah.
dead,
Bury
mourn
your-
your loss, see you in
You're
7
queen
days.
now.
It's like, yo.
Sure.
Which
Yeah,
did
it's
you
like-
guys? I mean, expect for that to happen too?
No.
I was not
No.
expecting.
No.
That's
No.
another really big major death. Like
Huge
I,
moment.
I mean, the
Yeah.
whole royal family is gone except for one entire person.
And I figured because so essentially in this scene we have Namor runs up, throws the spear right into the, I guess whatever the capital of Wakanda, Princess Ramonda, or rather Queen Ramonda's there. He leaves, comes back with a bunch of water grenades and throws those instead. It basically blows up the whole place, floods it. And then Angela Bassett, Ramonda, has to go save Riri, who's drowning. They're both drowning. She saves her, but then in doing so dies.
Do you think they were able to get into Wakanda so easily because like their security defenses were detecting vibranium on them, and they were like, oh,
maybe that, but also like who knows how deep they can go? Who knows how fast they can swim? Like when you're preparing, you're probably like, oh, like what? You guys are gonna bring a submarine in, or maybe. Like, you know what I mean? Because what did he say? He was like, you telling me that motherfucker swam 100 kilometers in? Like, we would be looking for ships. We'd be looking for, you know what I mean? Like, vessels.
We're not looking for
30 people swimming who expected that.
Things. And they make it a point, too, to say that as fast as he is in the air, he's even faster when he's underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just want to comment on his movement real quick. I really enjoyed how you felt as though he was moving with his feet first.
He was like running on the air.
It was like he was like ice skating almost.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Like, so what it didn't feel like he was really flying. He could kind of hover in place. Like it was like a hummingbird, actually, now that I think about it, where he could just kind of hover in place and then he really kind of zigged and zagged. He didn't really like, it wasn't like graceful flight, you know, it was really just kind of static movement.
Well, when you see him, it looks like he's like pushing off from here and like jumping here and jumping there, like airwalking down there.
It was a really, really, really good sequence. One of the biggest sequences in the movie. Yeah. So then
another funeral.
Let's skip to, you know, the next Black Panther, Shuri becoming the Panther, which.
Oh, hold on, real quick. While we're getting to this brings up one point about the movie I did want to bring up. We don't need Ross in it. I like Ross, but we don't need him. Here we are, halfway through the review. Haven't mentioned him once because we really didn't need him.
Ross. It was meant as a tie-in for the
Val.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah, for
Val.
Oh, you're talking about Martin Freeman?
Yeah.
Martin Freeman's back in a very supporting role.
I think that was really more for
the setup
of
the
Val and
DeSantis.
Thunderbolts and
Like,
whatever Val's doing in Phase 5.
I understand like for the setup, but every time they cut back, I was like, and the one thing they did do that I do think was super awesome that is kind of like, ooh, we're gonna do that in the movie is when the American government was like, well, look, the Wakandans are fucking around and we need to attack them. And you were like, attack them with what? And they were like, destabilization. And I was like, we're just talking about doing that now? Because, like, it's not an open secret, but it's a thing. It's like, your government disagrees with our government. Wouldn't it be crazy if it was disabled? Yeah. Who knows how? I don't know. Maybe
the
drugs and
Thunderbolts.
guns. I don't know. Maybe we never did anything.
Yeah.
Maybe the thing, right? And so, like, I like that was the way of attacking was through destabilization because that's pretty historic for the U.S. And, like, especially in other countries.
Nice, very.
I did
to acknowledge that from Marvel of all things.
Man, we're getting a lot of big moments from Marvel this year.
I did like Martin Freeman and
Julia Dreyfus.
I always remember Dreyfus whenever first name.
I like them both, but like every time it cut to them,
I was like, let's get back.
It was basically just a very, very C story to tie it into future stories.
Yeah, it was. But they're both so charming and they're like the most like likable actors, and she's so affable in that role, and just I think that everybody loves her, and I love the fact that we haven't even mentioned that they have made it canon that they were formerly married. Previously married.
She also said, I might come over and hop on your Peloton. I was like, slow down.
And I want to clarify one thing too.
Marketing.
He's the son of Ross, General Ross, right? As in, because his last name is Ross.
I never put that.
He's a secret agent. Or he's an agent for the CIA or the federal government.
I never put that together.
I just thought
and General Ross, who's the head of the DODC, the Department of Damage Control, he has to be his son. He has to be, right? And by the way, they because the late great William Hurt passed away, who played that character, he is now being reprised by Harrison Ford in the Thunderbolts.
We
keep talking about the Thunderbolts. So, anyway.
So
next Black Panther. She synthesizes the.
She becomes a Black Panther. So like in hindsight, it's very obvious that Shuri was going to be the next Black Panther, but because of how they were doing their marketing and they were playing it so mysteriously, that's the only thing that made me think like maybe it won't be Shuri. But like it's very obvious that.
Well, as soon as Ramonda died, I was like, it has to be Shuri now.
That was the moment, and it makes sense, and it was cool. I like the new suit.
Oh, it's so cool.
We're skipping the ancestral plane.
Ancestral
plane. Oh
plane.
my God, we have to talk about that. That scene was
that's
wild.
the one thing I got spoiled on. That's where he was going to be
spoiled?
in the movie. But I was like, what did they shoot this movie on? And it was just like starring Michael B. Jordan. I was like, well, okay. Thanks.
Oh, it was
didn't
in
see
the
that.
it was in the credits.
No, it was in like when I like looked up like I
Blind
literally
movie.
this was like the day before the movie even came out. Like it was just
You fucked up. You fucked up.
it was on Wikipedia a day early. Like I was at my fault.
You fucked up.
But-
Man. You can't
That
be looking shit up.
I mean, regardless, I didn't know where he was gonna appear in the
Yeah.
movie. I was worried they were gonna do the like we had him on ice this whole time and he's
Oh,
back.
Yeah, I was
And now we
hoping
got,
that,
but
yeah.
I think this was great because in her mind she's like I don't know who you see in the ancestral plane or what it means, but like she is back in the throne room, right? And like it's just like, hey, what are you gonna do? Like, you know, if you channel me, if you live life the way I did, if you think about how I did things, like vengeance, like it's there, it needs to be done. Like you need this hand. Like Killmonger would have went to fucking war. They'd still be at war.
Yeah.
And I think M'Baku had that good point where he was like, if you kill their god, it's an eternal war.
Yeah.
You kill their
Yeah.
god, they're not gonna
Yeah.
stop fighting you. That's
Right.
it. You kill their god, this is it. It's a
Yeah.
holy war,
Yeah.
and it's forever. Is that what you fucking want? And the only thing she can see is like, I want that. And then like you get Eric, and he's like, yeah, like all the smoke, and he's just like, he's all of his shit talk, and he's just like, your brother was a fucking coward. He's like,
Yeah.
your father could do what it takes, and like your mother doesn't want to make any actions. Like, where are you gonna stand in all this? Because like,
great.
I think that it was good. I think it was awesome. I think that like for her not wanting to say like who she saw is like a big deal because she feels shame for that.
Right.
Yeah,
But like he is
Like,
as
why
much of
him
a part
above-
of him as like as a part of like Wakanda as like everything else.
Well, and it comes at a very like appropriate point because as you mentioned in the beginning, so what happens at the beginning is it opens and Shuri is trying to create a synthetic version of the heart-shaped herb that used to grow in Wakanda
That was burned by Killmonger.
Exactly. So the fact that we start with that, she's unable to synthesize the heart-shaped herb, which leads to T'Challa's death. Not leads to, but she couldn't
She
save him
fails to-
with
Yeah.
it, right? Yeah. She couldn't remedy his ailment with it. And so at this point in the story, through various different measures and so forth and so on, she's able to synthesize the heart-shaped herb. And so then she takes it, it concludes that narrative arc, she's able to get over that, and then in doing so, meets Killmonger. So she creates the synthetic one, he burned
Yeah.
all the other ones, she sees him, there's a little bit of mirror imagery there.
And the room is on fire.
And the room is on
and
fire.
she said she wanted to burn the world down.
Exactly.
The imagery is great. And
Yeah.
I mean,
feeling her anger too, being like,
Yeah.
I can't say I wouldn't be in the same headspace. Like for sure, yeah. I mean,
she's lost everyone
Everything.
at that
Father,
point.
mother, brother.
yeah. The mom dying was really a gut punch. I was
Man,
like,
I didn't think it was gonna
really
happen.
didn't expect that.
No, I did
Awful too,
not. I was
man.
like, they're not gonna take everyone away from her, right?
Yeah, they're just taking moms left and right. They got Thor lost his mom.
which would make you the dark version of yourself, which would make you
Yeah.
want to be like, man, what did my cousin say he wanted to do? Maybe we should.
He's sounding
maybe we should
right
look
about
into
now.
So one thing led to another, and we're at the final battle now.
Which
Also, what was the name of the suits she made for Okoye and
Midnight Sister or something?
Midnight something?
Yes,
But that
Midnight
was-
Flyer Rider Sister.
Yeah.
Something like it was Midnight something though. For
Yeah.
sure.
That was pretty cool. I'm just guessing something from the
Oh,
comic.
I didn't like it.
I think
You didn't
it's-
like it?
I think it's from the comic.
Yeah.
It's something. Something from
so
the comics.
as we get into this last fight, let me mention some things real quick because I do want. I kind of want to gush. I want to talk about the last fight and all that. But like, I think there was like some special effect things where you could tell people were kind of like on green screen, like plates and shit. They're like for them putting Okoye in this suit where we can't really see her and we can get a lot of CGI work out of that. Same with the Ironheart suit, and it's just kind of their faces. It really gave me the connection of like these people aren't all in the same space. And then like this is what when I left the movie, like in this part of the movie, I was like, man, like I'm not feeling it and all that. And I was thinking about like the Woman King and like how they did that. And I haven't even seen that yet, but just thinking about all that shit. And then like as we got out, like I literally told Marquette, I was like, I'm gonna be up for the next 2 hours like simmering on this. And then I was like, they shot this during 2020. That's right. Because then I even put myself in. I remember in 2020 where I was at when we got the news that like Chadwick Boseman had passed away. So I was like, shooting this in 2020 meant that they were gonna have to do. Y'all lost a major actor, and then you had to like scramble. Like who knows what parts of the stories. And I was like, I can forgive it for all that because the story still has that emotional heart and still carrying us with a Shuri, a character that I'm like falling in love with, who's going through her grief. So like, yeah, lack of my actual characters in the actual places I want them in, fighting actually, and having them in suits where it's mostly CG and all this. I was like, okay, I get that. I get why we had to do that. And, you know, it's just is what it is. It's another movie that made it through 2020. And the fact that it is as good as it is now,
Is wild.
with having been borderline almost kneecapped or juggling the fucking trick of like, how can I come up after all these things have happened. Like
the criticism I gave for Okoye, I think I kind of noticed it there too, because like you said, they're in the CGI mask, but like especially in that last fight, there was a lot of like hit close up on Denai. The mask comes off.
So she
says
She
her
can say
quip.
a line, it goes back on.
Then the mask comes back on. I think that's where I started. I was like, come on, we don't need a joke every like.
I see what you mean. I thought that was one standout moment. I know we all are kind of thinking of the same moment when she does have a one-liner where her mask comes off just to say it, and then it comes back on again. And it's like you didn't really need that moment right there, but I mean, it's okay. I'm glad for her to get screen time. She's a great actress.
It was a great sequence all around.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we kind of skipped the mom's funeral too. That was also very emotional and like
and it mirrored in a lot of ways in the imagery of it all. Of course, T'Challa's funeral.
and like the heart to heart that her and M'Baku had.
Yeah.
I really like his role in the movie now. He's just like the big brother kind of.
shows up eating a carrot and talking shit. It's
I
like,
love
it. Oh, what are you, bald-headed demon?
Hilarious.
That was good.
I died at that.
But we actually haven't really touched on and Riri's character, Riri Williams, right? So she was the one. So in all of this, she created a vibranium detector, which kind of spurred on the whole storyline. She became wanted by basically every agency on Earth. She was taken back to Wakanda, and there she was given the resources to build what is, in the comic lore, the Ironheart suit, which is essentially an Iron Man suit, but she developed it.
I felt like I liked her character. I liked her introduction, but it also felt like she's here to tie in a future thing, because like I know she was like tied into the story, like everything happened around her invention, but like for the majority of the movie, she just kind of felt like she was just kind of there.
She kind of felt like America from Doctor Strange.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's a story element.
Like she was just kind of there.
In addition to being a character, she's also kind of a MacGuffin, because both sides need her or want her, and that is actually kind of the jumping off point for the war.
Yeah.
Is him essentially, Namor saying, we need to kill her because she's essentially brought attention to my
Vibranium.
vibranium and the existence of my
In
people
our city.
in our existence, and it's like brought all that into question. So we have to kill her, and the Wakanda says no, there's a better way, and that's kind of like the fundamental rift there that happens. So she's a big part of the story.
Last thing, the Navy. They have that one ship. We know that they probably have other ships for them just to bring out like, oh yeah, we got our one aircraft carrier that we'll take out for right now. Who knows how many more aircraft carriers? Made out of vibranium, because also aircraft carriers is a way that you can rate a country's fucking strength to be like, oh, how big is your Navy? Like how much of a war on the world scale could you take on? We're just gonna take this one little ship out, and it's like kind of terrifying. Who knows what it does?
I also looked at it. It was like in kind of with their floating technology or their flying spacecraft looking like kind of like dragonflies. Their naval vessel looked like a whale.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat. I like the imagery of it. I mean, it's very simple, but I noticed the kind of parallels there, and I thought it was kind of neat.
So Marvel movies are often criticized for being very formulaic, especially when it comes to the climaxes. Did this one do anything different? Did this one satisfy more or less? Or
I think there was a lot. There was certainly a lot.
I liked it. I liked the conclusion that Shuri came to, and I'm glad they didn't get rid of Namor. I'm glad.
Me too.
He's just a great character, and I can't really classify him as a villain, really.
I like Shuri and Namor's fight more than the stuff happening on the boat.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So do I. Well, that was more interesting, and that stopped the fighting on the boat.
Right.
So it was like, that's what the deciding factor was, and there were more emotions there because all the things that when Shuri had that spear over him when he was down on the ground, they had these little flashes of her thinking about things, and it just wasn't her things; it was his things too. And so she came to a
both
conclusion.
of their civilizations, and like how beautiful they are, and how
they
much
mirror
war
each other.
would undo it both, which was like, and I thought that was a really big, powerful thing for anybody, the whole entire world on the world stage. Like we all have these interesting cultures, and like at war, everyone's culture is going to suffer in the war, right? And it's just like for her to like think about both sides and be like, she was like, we have to find another way to do this, and I was like,
it was a really powerful moment.
I yield.
It also showed that all the parallels between, I think, people, and especially in a story centering around civilizations that were subjugated by colonized European societies. This is showing the parallels between all humans, right? Like regardless of what color you are, even if you're underwater in this case, it's just all the civilizations exist in the same way, have the same values, like have the same principles and values of family and just peace, really. And she realized she didn't want to compromise that. I don't think he did really either. I think it was just a matter of fear for it to protect. It was him wanting to strike first to protect his own. And so, again, them finding the
He also saw the
balance.
world testing Wakanda,
Right.
and breaking into military facilities and like blackouts and shit.
paranoid.
And he's like,
gonna-
if they find out that we have it, they're gonna do the same to us.
Right,
And,
right.
like,
Exactly.
I like it was a different kind of resolution than we usually get. But like you said, Tana Huerta's acting as Namor, like he can be charming, and then like you can't get a clear read on him. So
I like it.
do you guys think his I yield was sincere and that he has a sincere alliance, or is it more of like a biding my time kind of thing?
what do you say at the end?
I don't really think it's a biding my time type of thing. I think he wants Wakanda to owe them. Because at the end, when he was talking, I don't remember the girl's name, but he was like painting on the wall, and the girl was like, I was waiting all my life to like fight with you, and then we just yield. And he was like, the surface world will come for Wakanda, and they have nowhere to turn but us.
Yeah. So like that's the kind of allyship you want. Also,
Yeah.
he said the strongest person on the strongest country on the face of the earth, which is like people usually talk about the president of the United States like that. And they're
Yeah.
like, be talking about Shuri, who is what at best 25, 26.
Yeah, but she's the
Yeah.
Black Panther.
Right, she's the Black Panther.
I
She's
wish
the
we
leader of the
got-
strongest country on the lane. It's like,
I wish we got
She's a queen
more of her as Black Panther, though. I feel like
Yeah.
the
It was
Black.
very short.
I think
Yeah,
she needed her arc.
Yes.
She
Oh yeah,
needed her,
no.
you know what I mean?
It was a
Yeah.
great build up to it, but like the actual Black Panther part, I just wish there was more. It
With
was
the gold adornments,
Yeah.
sort
It
of
was-
like Killmonger had.
dude, the new suit is
He
sick.
was
It
painting
was so.
himself in a panther. Did you guys notice
Yeah.
that?
So-
He was
so the-
paint-
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to see what he was
yeah,
painting.
he
I
was
couldn't quite
painting
make it out.
himself in a panther on the wall.
Yeah, when it pulls out, it's a kind of like not an inverted, but a mirrored image. He's on one side, and then there's this like cool panther, but it has even like spots
Yeah,
and stuff. It's
like
really
that
neat on the
mirrors
other
like
side.
Shuri's outfit.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, it's really neat.
So then everybody lives happily ever after,
Except for
and
the big resolution, not that part, but her going to finish the ceremony.
oh yeah,
Yes.
Which is her
And
capping
which-
off her emotional journey of, hey, this movie's about grief.
Yes,
which
that's
leads
basically
into,
what it was.
yes.
Yeah.
which leads into the mid-credit scene, the big drop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Prince T'Challa.
T'Challa,
Yes.
son of King
That-
T'Challa.
Yes,
I didn't
that was so
expect
cute.
that at all.
And also-
I didn't
And
see
it
it
kind of
coming
makes
either.
sense why Lupita Nyong'o's character would have been missing all that time.
And kind of
Yes.
hesitant to get back into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
fray.
And
Yeah.
it's cool because that was probably the big lingering question is like, oh, but what about them? So like this shows like they were communicating in the background, like
Yes.
they had their whole thing figured out.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't anybody
Ramonda
else's.
knows, too.
Yes, which was nice
Yeah.
because that was a good sentiment. I was concerned about that. 'cause
That
it'd
she
be-
didn't know,
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
forgot to mention, too, like, they spent a lot of time in Haiti, which also, like, isn't on purpose or isn't, like, on accident.
Were they playing futsal?
I think they were. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
don't
think they
remember
may
what-
have been.
But they, so they're spending a lot of time in Haiti, which Haiti has its own colonial fucking past with the French. So I
French,
speak French.
right, yes.
It's also why at no point in time was anyone from Wakanda ever being like, "Oh, you guys speaking French? I don't know that." Like every time anyone spoke French, it was already an automatic, a given because
Right,
they're in
right.
Africa. French
Exactly.
decolonizing there, but like with the shit that happened with that in real life, and you see like Lupita being there and being the headmistress at a school is way bigger than at the end of the last movie. They're like, oh yeah, we opened up like a library in Harlem or like a bookstore or something like that. But like now you see like she's here, she's in Haiti, she's like actually factually like here trying to make a difference, and it is good to see that that is what's happening for her. And like we still don't know like what Wakanda's outreach program is, but like I do want to see like more of that. And I know that she wasn't a part of Wakanda's outreach program; she was doing it on her own. But like it's good to
Right.
just see that, to be like, oh, we've got all this, like we're trying to take it to the other places of the world that have been negatively affected, and like giving that to them too, like being able to help out in
Yeah.
those ways. So
Yeah.
that was good.
I think it was implied that the outreach program had probably been impaired by T'Challa's like health. I think because when they came back to the UN, they seemed to be accused of being absentee.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing. It wasn't necessarily that they weren't outright or forthcoming with anything. It's just that they weren't showing up to class. Like
Yeah.
they weren't there. So I think they were dealing with the family matters, as it were. It's kind of a pun unintended.
Well, it was a great movie. costuming,
Oh my God.
cinematography,
Yes.
everything was just amazing.
Yeah.
So
The most serious Marvel movie.
let's give it a
very
let's give it a
serious.
grade.
Definitely.
Let's give it a 1 out of 5, Chris.
If I'm giving it a 1 out of 5.
Well, you have to kind of set the scale of what 1 and 5
Okay,
are.
I mean, 1 is obviously
One's
the
not
worst.
good.
Well, I mean,
5 is the best.
are we going to put movies on either one of those number ones?
Oh
or
no,
number
like
fives?
comparatively?
Okay. Yeah.
Nah,
Okay.
just in
All right,
general.
okay.
I guess.
I think I gotta give it a 4. Definitely rocked with it. I'm gonna watch it again on Sunday with the rest of my family. I have to watch it again. I just to kind
I'm
of
definitely
reabsorb
watching
it.
it again.
Very serious. A couple of things I didn't like. Some tropey things. Because I've said all the things that I did like, I'm going to mention the tropey things real quick. The underwater city wants to attack the surface. They always do. All the things. Some of the slow motion, like ramp things were a little and the CGI towards the end was a little and we didn't really need Ross. Other than that, I'm kind of here for it. I think it was good. That's it, man. I don't know. A little long, but I like a long movie.
I'm going to give it a 4.5. Yeah. It was really good. I think considering everything that happened and what they came up with, and it was bookended with Chadwick Boseman, even though he wasn't in it, and I'm glad they didn't go like a weird CGI Chadwick Boseman.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was-
I was on pins and needles. I was
it
like,
was-
no.
Please don't.
Do not give me what was the Fast and Furious movie, Fast 7?
Yeah.
That one hurt,
God.
and I'm glad that they did not do that. That
It
would have
was-
been hella disrespectful.
It was very tasteful to not have him in it, but also bookend the movie with him, and it was just really well done. And
like a hug.
it was great. It was great. I'll give it a 4.5.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was excellent. There's a lot in this movie. You know, because it's one of those films that's unusual in that it has real world implications when you watch it. So there is legitimate sentiment that you feel in it. So it's kind of complicated in that way. I don't want to like undercut it by giving it a 4. Again, I don't know what the scale is. Like if Endgame or whatever is a 5.
just, yeah.
For me, I would put Black Panther 2018 at 5.
Okay.
And number
Okay.
1,
Okay.
I would put
Okay.
Thor 2.
Oh my god.
I see what you mean. All right, I see what you're saying.
Okay, there you go.
Then it's definitely 4.5 for sure. Like I think, and to me, I think that it's just as good in some ways. And I don't want to say better. I will say more interesting than the first Black Panther, which as movies go, that's inevitably how it happens. You have to have a more archetypal beginning. And then the sequel is usually where they take characters in new and different directions, a la Empire Strikes Back or really anything like
This
that.
does feel like the Empire Strikes
Yeah.
Back
You know,
trilogy.
And
Yeah.
so far, both Black Panther movies, the villains are
Yeah,
some of the best in the whole.
Killmonger's like
Yeah.
one of the best in the
So I do feel like there's some areas that are underserved. I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about Ironheart and had a little bit more exposition on her and things like that. Maybe in a different way than they were delivered, but that's minor complaint overall. Just my wife said it was her favorite MCU movie, and she's seen all of them, including all the series. So there
Dang.
you go. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 specifically for a couple reasons. I really liked the story. I think it did a great service tributing T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman itself. I don't think it could have been better in any respect in that area. Loved the story, and I think I mentioned this in the beginning. I know some of the complaints from you guys were that it wasn't like Riri Williams, her story, and then like Val and Ross's story. I liked those elements because I think it leans more into the future of the next phase. And I haven't
Setting some
felt
things
that in any other movie in this phase.
Yeah.
And so it reignited that excitement for me for Marvel in general.
Yeah,
And I
that's
just
awesome.
want to give Black Panther its flowers for that.
Yay.
Real quick before we finish, there was one thing we didn't mention. I think we would be remiss if we didn't.
Yeah. I can cut it in.
Yeah, sweet. That scene where Namor's descending down to his fucking shark jaw throne.
I love it.
With his
Yes.
sweet headdress on.
Oh man.
Yes.
Getting ready to yell some shit is
Oh my
probably
gosh.
for me one of my like favorite moments of the movie. I was like, holy fuck, this
That
is
was
and
so
just
cool.
awesome.
And how he handled that scene too. He was like, "Listen, y'all,
I fucked up a little bit. Don't worry though.
No.
We're about to go get at it.
No, definitely.
And I was like, oh shit, son.
You don't see that from leaders where they admit that, like, this is my fault. So again, that makes his character so interesting.
Yeah.
What do you say? I let hope get in the way.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my
damn.
god.
Yeah, it was, and I love that they consider him to be Kukulkan, the
Kukulkan.
dragon serpent that has like. So if you've ever seen the dragon serpent, it has kind of a square face usually,
Yeah.
and it has feathers as a mane, and then it's like
Yeah.
scaly after.
And he
that.
came down there looking. Ugh.
And he had that headdress on and everything. That I
That was like his villain moment. That was like the okay, this
Yes.
guy's cool as shit.
That was his turn where
Yeah.
he was like, nope, this is
Yeah.
happening. Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Wanted
so
to
good.
mention that. All right,
Well,
so good.
guys, that was our review for Black Panther. Obviously, we all loved it. Everybody,
Go see it, please.
Everybody that you don't see here on the couch, they will be doing a reaction when the movie comes out. They're gonna
Hey.
be dumb and not watch it in theaters.
I'll probably watch it again when we do the reaction.
Yeah, I'll be on the couch too. But
Hiding behind the
yeah,
couch.
that was our review. Hope you liked it. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.